Welcome to the Armory. This is where men are forged, not comforted. Where real conversations happen, no filters, no masks. We talk about things that most people avoid: pressures, purpose, discipline, failure, growth. Because in here, we don't stay the same. We sharpen each other. So if you're ready to level up, stay inside. This is the Armory Podcast.
What is up, the Armory Podcast? I'm your host, Luis. I got with me Miss Lynn.
Hey, how you
She's
doing?
our special guest today. Got my boy Elias. He was with us virtually last week. So, yeah, we're getting here a little another episode in for you guys. Miss Lynn's going to share some of her story, and then we'll take it from there.
All right.
Let's go.
We're good.
All right.
You want me to just dive right on in there?
No.
Sure, we got some interesting questions that we could start off with.
Yeah.
What you got,
Well,
Luis?
first of all, you got to introduce. Well, Elias, you were here virtually, so you got to introduce yourself. As a new person, I always like to give them a chance to introduce yourself. So, since Miss Lynn is our guest, Miss Lynn, please give us your deets, social, all that stuff.
Oh dear, can't use that social.
Make sure right in the mic.
Okay, I'm Lynn. Let me see. I'm Lynn. That's just it. That's it. I'm Lynn. That's all we got. I'm Lynn.
Okay.
I'm all that. I'm all Lynn.
All in, Miss Lynn.
All in, Miss Lynn.
That was actually my high school's football motto.
All in.
That was what Coach Foster wanted us to be all in when it came to it all.
Somebody
my
call
mom
me.
always calls him an old podcast. She called it last
She's
week.
faithful.
Check on you.
She's faithful.
So, first of all, how long you been with Elevation Church? Start with that little detail.
First time I came or the second time?
I mean, give it all. Let it all out, I guess.
I came to Elevation Church back in 2017 when we were at Millbrook, and I really was coming because I was so ready to leave the church I was going to.
Okay.
And I had made up in my mind that Sunday that I was leaving, and I came to Elevation and I walked onto the parking lot, and we greet. You can't hide from being greeted and being loved on at Elevation, and we do that from the parking lot all the way through. So I fell in love with the fact that the way they greeted me coming in. So, and then just how everything flowed and the organization of how everything went. From there, I enjoyed it. And it was the sermon, Pastor Stephen Furtick always preaches a series.
Yeah.
And the series was Bars and Battles.
Okay.
The service was really great. And there was one point in his sermon where he said, somebody in the audience is thinking about leaving. And I thought, I know this man is not talking to me. And I felt at that moment that the spotlight, even though it was being streamed from Charlotte, I felt like all of the spotlight had just turned and just shone on me. And he said, you're thinking about leaving, but you're going to leave too soon and you will have missed the lesson. And I thought, I know good and well this man is not telling me to go back. I came with every intention of leaving and he is telling me to go back. But I went back. And when I went back honestly with a different mindset on serving. Because I think I always felt like, I was a volunteer. But to me, there's a difference between volunteering and serving. So after that, I went back. I went with a whole nother mindset, a whole nother attitude. And some things happened in my life where I wasn't able to make it to a church function. And the title that I had, I really should have been there, but I just couldn't do it. And I was sat down and I was basically told that I was dismissed. So you dismissed me, but it was okay to be dismissed because I didn't feel as if I had to leave. Thank you for giving me my hand and letting me know it was okay for me to go. COVID happened. I never went back. And my daughter and I were sitting there one day and we were like, let's give Elevation a try.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 2023.
Wow.
So I came that one day in 2017 and came back in 2023. But the motto is still the same. We still greet from that parking lot. And I felt like I had never left and never missed anything.
Yeah.
So from there, I've been here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
I've been here.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a question. Why Elevation? That first time when you came back in 2016, 2017?
I had never heard of Elevation when I came to, I heard some things about it, but I'd never been to a service. But everything that I heard about Elevation, it was just one of those things like, give it a try. And to know me, I'm a person who loves organization. I don't like stuff to be messy. And to me, Elevation was just that organized for me, to the point that when I came in, you made me feel more than just a visitor. I wasn't a number. I was more than just a person. You saw me. You saw me. And the fact that whoever walked me in told me when the service was over, they were going to meet me on the other side. And they met me. They were actually there, actually walked me in from the beginning and walked me back out and thanked me for coming. And I think 2 days later, I got the card and telling me welcome. It was just organized, but I didn't feel like I was disconnected. I really did feel a part. You made me feel a part. And I loved the gift.
Yeah.
Because they gave out T-shirts back then.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Not a pen or a mug.
Yeah.
A whole T-shirt.
It's funny you say that because about the mug, because I went to Beacon, I've been to another Baptist church in Raleigh, and that's what they gave out was
a mug.
Was a mug. I think it was Beacon Baptist.
Right.
And I enjoyed being there. It was just, I think for me, I was not used to, well, I was never really in church growing up. So then going to a independent Baptist church, which is, from my understanding, very different, because the independent really stuck out because I felt like people independently stayed in their own lane. Like they just, they wasn't really like, I had two friends, two people that I always talked to, two gentlemen in the back, two older guys. And then it was just weird. And then that was just my experience. I'm not saying it's everybody's experience. I'm not saying it's a bad church or anything like that. It's just my experience was different. I came from Summit Church, went to Beacon Baptist, and then there was an in-between where I was kind of going on and off at Summit. And then some friends were coming into Elevation, and then, I just never left.
Right.
So, but yeah, I do like to start off, we did our intro. I do like to pray before we got kind of excited with the intro. The intro is a good idea. I'm actually going to probably keep that from here on out. I'm going to have to trim it because it's like a minute long, but we'll see. But I just want to pray right quick so we can kind of get together. Father God, I want to thank you for this opportunity to sit down with Elias and Miss Lynn as they give our time on this evening to come in and speak, and we can get to know them a little better. Father, let your words be our words. Father, let this episode that we record affect somebody in the ways that you need them to be affected, Father. So we just want to be a vessel for you. And thank you again for this opportunity. And in the mighty name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
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 No.
You hear Elias chime in with that deacon voice?
Yeah, amen.
That was a strong amen.
So you're a grandma?
Yes.
And you have two kids?
I have two.
Okay, you want to introduce them?
Yes, my son is Chris. He is, do you want me to get an age? Because that'll tell how old I am. I might not.
No, you don't have to tell anything you don't want to tell.
I don't have a problem with that. My son is 38 and my daughter is 28. So I have a son and a daughter, and I have Tyler Shane. He is my grandson, and my grandson has a little brother, RJ. RJ will be 2, and Tyler will be 7 in July.
Okay. And
they're my heartbeats.
I bet. Yeah, kids, they have a special way to keep you on your toes and keep you moving. Yeah, my 7 and my 4-year-old, man. Even Mateo now too. He's just
he's different. Mateo is different.
He is. Boys are very different from girls. 100%. Very different. He does not care if my glasses are on my face. He will make it a purpose to try to break them. And he broke them one time too. So I speak from experience, but yeah, so we kind of covered, how you came to be at Elevation. You serve in EHQ. You're one of the leaders in EHQ.
Yep.
Can you just give us a little brief overview of like what EHQ's mission is for the church? I know it's a role that has evolved, especially since we've been back serving, because before it was always like, oh, this is, we kind of make sure the volunteers get fed, but I feel like it's changing.
It's changing.
It's evolving, and you guys are kind of bringing the structure to, at least here in Raleigh for sure. So,
well, EHQ stands for Empowerment Headquarters. I've always enjoyed serving in hospitality, not necessarily from a restaurant point of view, but just serving in hospitality from a church standpoint. But I did like the fact that we call it Empowerment Headquarters, because that is the place where everybody comes. And what place better than to be in a place where you feed? And I referred to it one time with Pastor Angel that, Empowerment Headquarters, or EHQ, reminds me of, if you the Three Musketeers, or there was always that bar type of place, that
Yeah.
eatery type of place where everybody came. Everybody knew each other. Everybody had the opportunity to sit, to laugh, to just hang out and enjoy and fellowship and go back out. EHQ is kind of like that. We're behind the scenes. We're not really seen. We're not out front. If you don't know where we are, then you just don't know that we exist.
Right.
But we feed and we serve. And I love our motto, because we're a team, we're a family, we're an army, and we do it for the one. If I don't feed you to give you the strength to go back out, what have I accomplished? If you come in and you're feeling burdened, how can you serve that one if you can't come in and feel like you've left whatever issues you've been dealing with where you are? But it's something about food and laughter that brings everybody together.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I think I can understand what you're saying with the experience of me at basic training. When you're in the middle of the woods somewhere and it's very, we're all exhausted because doing whatever it is that we're doing. And when we were in the field, we used to sit back to back,
right?
Because you don't have anywhere to sit. You're in the middle. So it was just like the support, and you're eating, and you're just always with even if you don't really even know the guy, you guys are just sharing a meal together. It opens you up to have conversation.
Yep.
So
and it's that camaraderie.
Yeah.
But even in the field, you got each other's back.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what EHQ is. You have your teams that sit together, but everybody's got their back.
Right.
You got to have somebody you can watch out for and know that that person's watching out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a difference of perspective, especially when you want a coffee and you're like, I know I can get a coffee back at EHQ. And they're like, oh man, it's my favorite creamer. And it's just like you said, it just lightens up your day knowing that you're going to go back there and find something that's going to bring you joy.
Yep.
If it's a coffee, if it's just a conversation, if it's the person you have, haven't seen in a while, XYZ. So yeah, it's special. I do want to I want to ask you, because you said something that has had me thinking. When you said volunteering and serving are two different things, could you elaborate a little bit? Because that's actually pretty deep, because that I do believe that there is a different level. Not that one is better than the other, but just I think what it comes down to is the impact that you have on the church. So
volunteering to me is that person that just shows up because I know I have to be here at 7 and I'm going to do the part that I'm assigned to do. If it's 7 o'clock, if I'm an usher and all you need me to do is put out the visitors tags on the seat, that's what I'm going to do. But if I'm a servant and have a servant's heart, if I know that service is going to be there and everybody else is going to be getting there at 6, I am more inclined to think of what else needs to be done rather than this part. Serving means I'm doing it all. I'm going to go beyond, and I'm going to go the extra step, and I'm going to do it with a heart as if I'm doing it unto the Lord without the complaint.
Right.
That is difficult, because sometimes we as people, we're all human, and I don't know why Susie didn't put that over there. I don't know why she did it that way. We have to do it this way. Everybody has things that they do differently, but when you're a servant, if I'm always going to look at the fact as I do it as unto the Lord, he never misses a beat. He never misses a step, and he's never late. He's always on time. So if I am in community and family, and let's say you're a staff person, you're my leader as a staff person, but I know everything that you have going on and everything that's going on behind the scenes to make it happen. What part can I do? 7 o'clock may be my call time, but if I know we still have things to do and everybody's there at 6, then guess what? I'm going to be here at 6 because that's what needs to get done. It's that knowing when we had to open on March 29th and we got the email that says, hey, these things need to be done. I don't work in construction. I don't work with tools. I don't even own tools. But you need me to come here to unpack chairs. I'm unpack chairs. That has nothing to do with EHQ, But my servant in me is like, okay, we got to be at church.
Yes.
I don't want me to put nothing together. The kids' room may not be, stuff might be lopsided. You work in your lane that you can work in, but serving and volunteering, they bring two different levels to the game to me.
So it's almost like you're just going beyond what is expected, because like you said, you're in EHQ. You don't have to come do something that team does, but
Right.
because if you look at it, well, it's that team's responsibility.
Right.
I think that's a determining factor of like how far you're willing to go.
Because this person over here, Elias, I'm gonna talk about us for a second.
Where are you going to start at, Miss?
Listen.
I'm really curious to see where you start this.
Listen, let's talk about Tap Tech.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Cheers. Okay.
Oh yeah, I've heard horror stories about it.
Okay. So, first of all, we're moving at a very fast pace.
Right.
We got to take the chairs out the boxes.
Uh-huh.
I want you to know my friend over here who was not paying attention almost took my whole face off.
Man.
Because he was walking so fast with the boxes that the wind was blowing that the flap of the box literally
I didn't even know that happened.
hit me in the face. I was like,
Allegedly.
No, I haven't. No. We're not going with the alleged. No, but you have to work as a team.
Yeah.
This is somebody I don't work with.
Right.
He's not in EHQ with me on Sundays.
Right.
But we have to work together as a team to get this done. Now, you should have seen us trying to get everything lined up. But it got to the point, it's like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't know. Let's do it. Trying to work together just to get it done so that we can have everything the way it needed to be. Yeah. But that was the first time I really worked with him. I've seen him, but that's the first time I really had to work with him. But that allowed me to get to know him. And I think it was that Thursday or that Friday when we had worship. And that was the first time that we did something with the tap. We put all those cards on the chairs. Never once thought about trying to figure out what that meant and what it did. And it's like, this is what this is supposed to do. Okay, we did a great job, but just working together as a team. And it doesn't matter which team you're on. We're all team body of Christ,
Amen.
right?
Yeah.
So we have to work together. But that's the first time I really had an interaction with him other than outside of here's your coffee and what do you want to eat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think the building it's going to bring the ability to have conversations even with the people you serve with.
Mhm.
Because like you're on the campus team, and I'm sure you guys are pretty smaller groups, so it's more you guys get to know each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
But like when you guys are doing your thing on Sunday when it was portable, it was hard to like have more intimate conversations, and I'm a testimony to this because I've known Blake, one of the guitarists. I've been serving with him since almost 2 years now, but I felt like this past Thursday when we had like a little run through, we kind of learned cameras we had here at the building. It was probably the first time I had a full like conversation with him in the 2 years that I've almost been serving. He's been here almost over 10 years, but yeah, I think the building is going to bring the dynamic of, and that's going to help. I think that's going to help give more people that serving mentality versus just volunteering mentality for sure.
I agree. I think I've seen more people. I've seen them, but because we've never really had that time to really interact, y'all know me. I'm horrible with names. I'm really bad with names. I'm starting.
You're working on it though.
I'm trying my best. I stopped describing people. No, I stopped having people show me their face on Facebook. I'm like, oh, that's their name. But I'm just bad with names. But I know that face. I know their face when I see them. But it's something about actually having that conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
That goes beyond, like I said, hey, what sandwich do you want? That's getting to know their name, getting to know, okay, this, I had surgery. Really, it's going beyond that.
Yeah.
But I think that's just the mantra of just elevation. When we say family, it's just not a word. We really do mean that. And we really do love each other like family.
I was going to touch on that. And I think that was one of the things that stood out to me the most when I first started coming to Elevation and serving. Immediately, it felt like family.
Yeah.
Eating meals together. So you come in, who wants to be here at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, waking up at 5 o'clock? But it made it so much better and so much more worth it, once you get here and we break bread together, literally. Back at Sanderson, portable situation. So if it's cold, it was cold outside, some mornings, raining sometimes, but we all came in, pitched in together. And just to share those few minutes together in EHQ to break bread, you get to know like what people like and what people don't like. You got some people who don't eat carbs,
Yeah.
So small conversation. And then, like you said, now that we're in the building, I think the relationships are starting to mature a little bit.
Yeah, because
And now I'm really getting a chance to know everybody. Like you said, Miss Lynn, like you said, we came here on that Thursday,
Right.
and she was cutting up. I will tell you that. But we,
I believe you.
we
I
had-
believe you. I
yeah.
believe you.
But we had a great time though.
Yeah.
And it was like you said, something needs to be done.
Let's
I'm
do
not
it.
going to do anything else. Let's go ahead and knock it out, get it taken care of.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
It wasn't left up to the regular people, because I think sometimes at some churches, you always seem to have the same people that always show
Yeah.
up. That's not here. Everybody pitches in where they can. Everybody's lifestyle may not allow them to be here at the time that's necessary, but they're here when they can get here. And when they're here, they are here. I mean,
Right.
they are. When we did the walkthrough that Sunday, when we couldn't worship at Sanderson and we were here, it was cold.
Yeah.
But we were out here.
Yeah.
We were out here. Not so much. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we're out here. It's so cold. It's like, okay, we're here. Next group's coming in. We were just as excited to see the people coming in as much as we were to serve the people coming in.
Yeah.
It was cold, but we made it happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's also about having a servant's heart. We make it happen. And I love the fact that I don't care what is going on behind the scenes. Nobody that comes through that door will ever know what happened behind the scenes. I think block party. We had some hiccups at block party and my daughter helped serve. And my daughter that day we didn't have air. The Sanderson, we didn't have air in the auditorium. The ice machine wasn't making ice. We had to run out. Oh my gosh, so many times just to get cases of water. And we had the water that we ended up having that we were serving to the volunteers that we had to end up using in the auditorium. Well, guess what? Now we need more water. So we're literally passing the car. Hey, can you go get the water? I need you to get me about this many cases. And bringing it back. This didn't happen right. But what I really loved most was my daughter's comment to me. She said, out of everything that I know that did not go right, you have to really applaud your team and everybody at Elevation that was a volunteer because it never showed. It never once showed. And that to me is so important because we have to make sure that we are so united to the people coming in that we don't look like what they're going through out there.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to be able to come inside and feel like you are being loved. This is a place where you should honestly be able to say, okay, the cares of the world are out there. This is where I need that safety, where I need that.
They need a sense of security.
Exactly. The sense of security. And I think that's just one of the things that we do here. We go above and beyond and we are not so much for ourselves and the volunteers, but what we do in that parking lot for the volunteers that come, not the volunteers, but the visitors that come in from beginning to end. I don't think I've ever seen a mean usher. I'm never out there that much with the ushers, but I've been in some churches now, y'all. Now, y'all know we've been in some churches where the ushers have not been the nicest persons, but I don't think we've experienced that here. It's always a greet, a hug, a smile. How you doing? You look great. Thank you for coming. Come on in. It's welcoming, but it's welcoming from the time you hit the parking lot.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's all the way in. It's welcoming, even with praise and worship. How can you not get in praise and worship? I'm sure there's some people who can, but the love that exudes of how they feel about Christ is amplified when they hit that stage. It is across the board. It's across the board.
I could testify to that. The first couple of times I came to church, again, like I wasn't brought up in church, so I was doing this all on my own. So I was like, okay, it says service starts at 9:30, but the sermon didn't start till 10, right? So in my mind, I was like, well, I'm going to come at 10. And I think the second week, I got here early. I got here for worship, and it made a difference. And from that point on, I realized, I learned to love worship.
Yeah.
So it made a huge difference. But in my mind at first, it was just like, oh, I'm just coming for the
The
sermon.
word.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
was also because I was doing it online at first.
Yeah, you
I was
just
kind of waiting for the
Yeah,
sermon.
because online it's very limited because you got a TV. They could be singing the best song in the world. Your TV's at 2. You're
Right.
not gonna hear it. And even when it's loud, it's not the same with just being in the room. The vibe, the
It's not the
experience
same.
overall. It's not the same.
Yeah.
But
The living room worship.
yeah,
Right.
That's what I called it. The living. I do horrible at online at home
it's tough.
because I'm not going to sit still.
Yeah,
And I am doing everything: laundry,
Yeah.
cooking, washing dishes. By the time I realize I have not heard one thing,
Yeah.
it's over.
Right.
But I'm so focused on everything else that needs to happen that I'm not focused on the service. That's why I love it. When that very first Sunday I came in 2017, now I have to admit I knew absolutely not one song
Right.
because Pentecostal.
Yeah.
I'm used to, I didn't know any of those songs. I thought that was different. I don't know any of those praise and worship songs. I'd never heard of them. Now, my mother even asked me, is that an elevation song? Child, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard even now, and when you hear like videos or you see like videos of other churches and stuff, and the songs they're singing, you're like, "Oh, that's an elevation song." So,
Right.
but one of the things that Pastor Stephen said this past weekend was "Big doors swing on little hinges," and I think everything we just described of our experience as being volunteers and serving people, it fits that to the T. Like what you just said, like we come here, it's cold outside, it's raining, those small decisions is what makes the
Yep.
doors of the church open. But I know that all of us have had situations where that big door, much as we want to open it, we have to let God open them. That has to swing, it has to open when he pushes the hinge.
Right.
Yeah.
And when he pushes the door and it turns. You grew up basically raising your 2 kids by yourself.
Yep.
And that's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, Kai and I, with our 3 biological kids and now our 2 bonus kids that we have, it's a lot. And it's different dynamics. So I can only imagine what it is, dealing it by yourself. And I know there's probably a lot of times where your faith was tested. Could you share a time or two where like you felt like, devil almost got you?
Listen, I recently, I have a program that I do on Tuesdays. And last Tuesday, I think was when it aired, I did a tribute to my children for Mother's Day. And I did it in such a way that, I think as being a single parent or parent, period, you could be married and still, deal with being a parent and feeling like it's single. Sometimes we don't give ourselves grace. And I mean that grace from the standpoint that we forget to forgive ourselves when we make the mistakes when we didn't know how to do it any other way.
Right.
Raising 2 children, I was young when I had my son. I didn't know how to be an adult, to raise a son, to trying to even maneuver life, period. But I always said that my son saved my life because when I had my son, my idea of what I was going to do with the rest of my life, Jesus was nowhere in that. It just wasn't there. But I had to go through what I needed to go through. But I made a decision that I was going to be a mom, and that required me to grow up. There was nothing. I remember I had my son in February, and I walked across stage for college in May. And I'll never forget it. I went back to school, and I was like, because I was a partier. I loved to party. And they said, "What is wrong with you? Why are you?" I'm like, "Girl, I'm a mom. I don't have time. I just didn't have time." But my tribute to my children meant the world to me because while I always felt that I didn't do it right, that there were some things that I could have done different. What if I had changed this? What if I had done that? And it is so amazing how a 2-letter word like if can distort so much that we rely on an if to make a decision. And we always think if it was this way, if it was that way, but nothing is promised in that if whatsoever. When my son's fiance, They were supposed to get married February 27th, 23rd. I can't remember the date, but we're all getting dressed. We're all getting dressed to go to the courthouse. We were going to the courthouse for the wedding, and right before we got ready to leave or started to get dressed, I got a text message from my son telling me we have to pray. Her dad went to cardiac arrest, and he went into cardiac arrest, and they live in Lumberton. So they have to leave to go to Lumberton. Long story short with that, I think he stayed a week in the hospital. He had to be transported to another hospital that would have the care that he was going to need, which was in Wilmington, which is 3 hours away from here. There was no brain function, so he ended up passing. We had the funeral for him. And the same day that we're having the funeral is the same day my daughter gets the word that she got accepted for the apartment she had been looking for. But when you think that you don't do it right, God has such an amazing way of showing you did better than you thought.
Yeah.
Because I had the pleasure of literally sitting back watching my son be a man.
Yeah.
I watched him hold up his fiance, her mom, and her grandmother. And I sat back on that row and I was like, you know what? For everything that you thought you did wrong, you did okay. And what is wonderful about it is that when I finished the program, my son is immediately calling me. And he was like, I would have never been the man I am today if it had not been for what we've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was one thing that he said to me one day. He said, I felt like at some point in time, we were in survival mode. Sometimes I didn't necessarily feel loved, but I felt like we were in survival mode. And when you are so young, trying to be an adult when you've never had to adult, there were some mistakes, but I did the best I could, not knowing really what to do. But to hear him tell me now that I really made a difference in how he is today, that meant the world to me. But to actually sit back and see him doing what he was doing,
To witness that.
I was just like, man, that's your son. That's your son. And you need to give yourself some grace for the mistake that you made, some things that didn't go right. Could things have been different? Yeah, they could have. But there's some things that I did that if I hadn't done it that way, I don't know whether or not I would have the fortitude to stand with what I've gone through now. Having surgery in 2024, I had an in-home daycare. I lost my daycare.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't recover fast enough from the surgery to get it back. Having to do some of these things, being evicted, losing my apartment, having to literally start all over. There's one thing to say you trust him, and there's another thing when God makes you put that word down and let me see how well you gonna trust me.
Mm-hmm.
You say it, but do you really trust me? Can you really honestly tell me that you trust me when you really don't know where the money is coming from? Can you honestly say that you can trust me when here you are back again? Doing the same thing. This 2024, 2025, hands down, it put a new spin on my relationship with Christ. It did, because I know you all know 2025, January, February, March, first quarter, I was supposed to have surgery. Didn't want to have it. And because I just finished having my quadruple bypass. It seemed like every doctor's appointment after that, there was something else. This isn't right. That isn't right. And I had an appointment with the doctor and we were talking surgery. And I left that appointment and I sat in the parking lot and I literally told God, if they have to put me to sleep, I'll be okay if you don't wake me up, because I was tired. And I felt like I had been gut punched enough that I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't have the surgery in 2025. 2026 came and it was like, ma'am, you really can't push this out anymore. We have to do it. So here I am at the beginning, top of the year, and I have to have 2 major surgeries back to back. But I was so grateful because I made it.
Amen.
I completed them and I came out with flying colors and everything was great. But in 2025, I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do this anymore. I'm getting this way. But I have to honestly say it deepened my relationship. It really deepened my relationship. It made me really understand him a whole nother way. In March of 2025, when I got that report and I was really thinking about the surgery, and I was just like, I'm good if I don't wake up. That was in my mind. That was honestly in my heart. Mr. Stephen Furtick preached a message in March that said, God's not done yet. And I thought, really? Are you kidding me? And his subtitle was Callings Have Commas. We fast forward to 2026. I never ever thought that I would be an e-group leader, number one, because I decided, I want to do something a little bit more. And my lovely leader, Joy, was like, we need more e-group leaders. And I thought, wow, really? That's how we're going to do this? We're just going to put it out on the table just like that. And I was like, okay, I think I'll give it a try. Not a problem. But full circle, that is what I started my e-group, was that message.
Yeah.
God's not done yet, and callings have commas.
Mm.
And every time that we feel that it's done and it's over, it's not done until God says it's done. And I wanted to put periods where God kept trying to put a comma. I wanted to close chapters where God was letting me know, no, ma'am, there's still more. And it was funny because he literally said to me, I gave you a brand new heart and you think I'm finished? I just gave you a new heart just so you could start all over. We did a complete reset. I was getting a reset.
With the spark plug. Let's get the
that's that easy button, reset, redo the step. That's what I feel like. I just feel like what I thought isn't what it is. So yeah, I'm here at Elevation, and it's like, wow, okay, let's put these roller skates on and let's do this thing. Come on.
Where did the fortitude come from? I mean, it sounds like you've seen a fair share of furnaces in your life.
That's a loaded question, Luis. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
It's called the Armory podcast. We're over here.
How much time? Look, how much time do we have? Is it time?
No, we got plenty of time.
The fortitude.
Because I'll be honest with you, that's where I'm building.
Fortitude.
The fortitude part. Because the structure of, Elias knows a lot of my goals that I currently have, just because being part of the e-group, we're talking and things that I'm trying to do. And I just realized that everything that I've been trying to do has never worked because I'm not trying to do what God wants me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from my marriage to how I raise my kids, how I deal with finances, how I approach my job. Because easy, like my job, I've progressed. God's been very faithful, and I've progressed and earned more money and stuff. And I'm like, man, why am I still in the same situation? Like, why? It doesn't matter how much money I make, and it's about I'm changing my mental model, like Pastor Angel and Pastor Stephen talked about in one of our leaderships. It's about changing that.
Yeah.
And I have to be careful because if I'm changing the model, I need to make sure that God's model is what I'm going towards. And God's working on me heavily, and I am relying, I'm making sure I'm making the better decisions, because if I don't, it's just going to be a revolving door.
Exactly.
Right.
So, for you to, having a baby, graduating school, having another child, losing your daycare, surgeries, moving back, moving back with your mom. That's a lot. That's a lot to carry, because you have to.
In a year.
Yes, in a year.
In a year.
And if you don't have that relationship, and remove how you feel about everything,
it'll take you out.
Yeah. You'll be singing a different tune. But
And there's some songs that I sing. Yes. It is the fortitude. Honestly, it changes. It changes because with every trial, I look at it differently. With every test, you go into it differently. Everything we go through strengthens us for the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the valley and the mountaintop experience. The mountaintop it seems like where everybody wants to be. That's where the high part is. It's great. We're wonderful. We're at the peak. We're at the crux of everything. But we forget that in the valley, while it may seem bleak, if you look at it again, there's something growing in the valley. There's still wildflowers in the valley. So if there's wildflowers in the valley, there's growth in the valley.
Yeah.
So even though you may seem like you're down here, if we don't get it down here, You can't make it up there. So we have to take every lesson that's going on in the valley so that we can make it to the top. And when you get to the top, guess what? You don't stay there. You got to come back down because
at new mountaintop.
A new mountaintop, you got to
Yeah.
go. But what you did in this valley will give you the strength to make it through the next valley because you're going to see that again.
Mhm.
And I told somebody one day, we oftentimes as people, I think, we don't always want to go through things, but in order to get to it, you have to go through it. We either want to try to go under it, and sometimes going under it means we just want to hide. But we have to be careful not to try to go over it too fast because then
Yeah.
you want to seem like you are the one who got you out of the situation,
Yeah.
like you're over it. That's not what God wants. You've got to go through it.
Mhm.
Because how can I appreciate it if I don't go through it?
Yeah.
If it comes easy, we have kids. You know, if you give it to them, thank you.
If you get a thank you.
Exactly. You may not even get the thank you, but if you give it to them, oh, that's nice. Oh, I'll just go ask Dad. He'll give me that.
Yeah.
I'll go ask Mom. He'll give me that. But you get to that point where you make them work for it. You have an allowance. This is what you want to get. You're going to have to save up to get it. But then their need becomes greater. So now that I know how to save up for this, here comes the next thing. So, okay, I did this. Everything we did was a lesson. It is a lesson. If the lesson is meant to strengthen us, that's where we get the fortitude from. But if we quit, you can't get to the next. You gave up too soon. You gave up too soon. And it's kind of like, I'm sitting here with two men, Jesus. It's like going to the gym, weight training. You know, when you first start off, what they make you do, the bar, don't have no weight on it. But if you can't lift the bar, why are you putting the weight on it?
Yeah.
You got to
go through something.
Yeah, you got to go through something. You got to build that mass muscle up in order to do it. You know, I had a trainer, you know, I know it looked like it was years ago, but it's okay. But he used to tell me, you know, I would complain. You talking? Let's add some more weight.
Yeah.
Give me another rep.
Yeah.
I'm good. Isn't that the same way with God? You running your mouth? You complaining about it?
Yeah.
Let me let you stay in this situation a little longer.
Yeah.
Because you haven't tell me thank you. You haven't been grateful. All I've heard from you is mumbling and complaining. And yet I'm still keeping you. And yet I'm still, same thing. Same repetitions over and over again. You want to, but then you don't want to even go to the gym.
Yeah.
You don't even want to do that. You want to hide from it.
The
Or,
results, though.
and then you get to the place in the gym, what do we talk about? You get to that place where you plateau. You've done everything, but then you still can't lose the weight because you've plateaued.
Yeah.
Guess what? You're going to have to add more. But isn't that the same thing as Christ? Okay, great. You've done that. That's wonderful. You want to be a leader. Great. That's wonderful. You've handled that. Now this. Now, yes, I'm a leader at EHQ, but the leader for EHQ looked totally different than what is now. What I'm doing now, you know, because leadership is more than just you handle this, you handle that. Leadership now means I got to pour into you. I have to encourage you. I have to push you. Now, if I see that you're a leader, now that I'm a leader, I have to pull that leadership out of you. But I also have to notice whether or not you're ready for it. That takes going through some things to be able to see that. And
How would you be able to recognize it?
how
Or identify
right?
it?
How can I do it? I watched you, but we're at the gym. How he did there? He coming every day. You coming on Tuesday and giving 30 minutes, and you think you can handle what he's doing? How?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you may have already worked out, like you said, you were in the military. You may have already had the muscle mass, but muscles don't always have to get that memory back.
Yeah. You got to, because that's why you're getting stronger or you're getting weaker. There's
Either
no
way.
in between. You don't stay stagnant because
Right.
your body is naturally healing, right?
Mhm.
So, like your muscles, when they grow, they have to rip the fibers. So
But you said
can-
something key. You get stagnant.
Yeah.
Stagnant water stinks. It
It's bad.
stinks. So I heard somebody say a long time ago, snakes don't bite what ain't moving. So as long as you moving and doing what God is calling you to do, you're going to expect some opposition. You not doing it for God and doing it for him, doing it your way, smooth sailing, so you think.
Miss Lynn, I had no idea that you had surgery. Like, thank you
Mhm.
so much for sharing some of these details. I learned something about you. And what a blessing. Like, I feel even more privileged to know you.
Thank you. That's what he said today on Sunday. Watch. Y'all
Yep.
watch. Sunday going to be different.
I gotta take it easy on you, man.
Wow. Now I'm ancient.
No, not at
No.
all. Not at all. But I wanted to ask, like I said, like all you're going through, I didn't know you very well before today, but I would have never guessed some of these things.
Right.
Your attitude, like the way you carry yourself, is not what you have been through.
Yeah.
Has that always been your attitude, or has it been a changing point? Was there a changing point in your life where
There was
like
a
where things
time.
changed?
There was a time in my life, honestly, where I honestly used to ask God, why me? How
Right.
come? I see everybody else doing everything and they're getting everything. Why? When is it going to be my turn?
Mhm.
When is it going to be my turn? I stopped asking those questions.
Right.
Again, okay, I'm single. You get to that point when you're single. It's like, okay, when am I going to get married?
Right.
Hello. When is this going to happen? But I had to have a conversation with God, because I was in a relationship years ago and I really did think that that person was the one. I really, really did. And when I realized that it wasn't, that thing broke my heart.
Yeah.
And I am literally going to church. Is that service? Going to church to serve at a woman's function, to be the armor bearer for another woman pastor who is literally talking about dating and how we as women, when the man says, let's go out, we have already bought the dress, we've made the invitations, we've done all of these wonderful things. And her thing was like, it's just coffee. It's just coffee. How did you make it more than what it is if it's just coffee? And I had a conversation with God. I had to tell him, this may not be what you want for me. This is what I want for me.
Right.
But that may not be what you want for me. And if that's the case, I need you to remove that desire.
Yeah.
So that I can go in and do what you called me to do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't stupid. I did tell him, but if it be in your will,
Yeah.
let me be ready. I'm good. I am really trying to live my life the way God wants it to be lived. I haven't always done that. And there were times that even when it looked like on the surface, I was really living for Christ, wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
Wasn't always that way. But it gets to the point where, how do you say, we get tired of faking the funk? And that's really what it got to. It wasn't working. Wasn't working. And it really got to the point that I was just delaying what God had for me. And when I look back over that, I honestly think sometimes, how much further along would I really be? But really, would I be the kind of woman or the kind of person that has the character that I have now if I had not gone or done some of the things I did?
Right.
I don't know that. I don't know if I'll ever know that. But this person today, I like her.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. It's that
Me too.
conversation with yourself. I've had it, but about and I think sometimes people think I'm weird when I say this, but if my dad was alive, I don't think I'd be a Christian because of the influence my dad had on me. He was not, my dad gave more favor to the devil than to God, and I don't know if he was ever kidding. Now, he was a good dad, but outside of that, he always put family first. Like, as an example, as a husband, like how he dealt with my siblings and stuff, like how he dealt with my mom. Like, I just did not have, because there was a point in time when I was like, I don't want to be anything like him. When you have that conversation with yourself, you're like, man, if he was, would I have the same kids I have now? And you're like, you know what? Even though that rocked me the way it did, and it's affected me even to this day, like, I'm okay with it happening that way because I know what the outcome is. And I'm not saying that maybe I would have never been a Christian, but it's just from what I know then to now,
Right.
like it would have been, because we just didn't grow up going to church. It wasn't really taught. It's something that even, like you said earlier, talking about like, am I doing a good job? When it comes to like, am I talking about God enough? Am I teaching my kids about being a Christian and stuff? And the cool thing is, God gives me a little reminder when I hear my 4-year-old sing an elevation song.
Right.
When she's talking about, is that my church? Are we going to church today? So it's like you see that stuff. And then to me, it's getting to a point where it's like, okay, I need to start incorporating stuff. I saw these Bible posters that had like, the armor of God, the fruits of the Spirit, all of God's promises, right? And we bought them, and then they sat on a shelf. And I was like, you know what? No, we got to put these, got to put them up. So like near the bookshelf, there's all the books of the Bible. When you walk out, if you look over, there's all of God's promises. If when you're gonna go turn the light off, there's the armor of God, and then there's the fruits of the spirit. On the other side is the other stuff. So it's like small things like that. Those are the big doors swinging on small hinges concept. It's like you just don't know like how those little things are gonna.
Wait till they get older and they look at you and go, "Oh my gosh, mommy, everything is just not so Jesus." And I'm like, "You keep living, keep living."
It's funny with the oldest too. When I go, when I take them to school, even for myself, like what I consume, like music, like I growing up, you always listen to the explicit stuff, right? You gotta find a little E next to the song, right? Because you want the cuss words,
right?
And like now I'm like, I don't want to listen to that,
right?
So now it's like I go through if it's still on my phone, and it's like cussing, I just remove it, and then like now it's like I'm just always playing Christian stuff, or I might play some country just to kind of switch it up. But I'm very cautious of like what I'm consuming.
You have to be.
And I'm and I'm even my distractions. Like I just realized like how distracted the devil wants you to be.
Yep.
And they're with things that you're like don't think much of it, especially with our phones. We have all these apps on our phones, and sometimes we don't. But like I'm like, if I open my phone up and I'm looking for you, I'm gonna delete you. And I've deleted. So I'm not on social media right now. I'm just cleansing myself from social media. I'm not on, if it's like a streaming service, like if I'm going to watch you, I'm going to watch you on my TV. Move it, because also that was affecting how I was doing my work, because I work from home. So it's easy. It's easy to just put the thing right there, and then you work and you're like, oh, I ain't seen this episode.
Right.
I can
whole hours.
Oh man, now I'm up to 11 o'clock because I have to finish my work.
Right.
So, stuff like that, just kind of combing through these things. But yeah, that's awesome that all the furnaces that you've been in through, like that's what allowed you to be in the furnace, because and it's almost like maybe at first you couldn't step in the furnace,
right?
But you just got closer and closer
to it. Yeah.
And that's how the relationship with God is. Like you have to allow yourself to be built to be able to get there, and
you got to go through the refiner's fire.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
It's kind of recognizing it, right? Like they've been, like you said, having that conversation with yourself, because there's a lot that I've been through, and it was just always like, why me, right?
Yeah.
It took me a long time to accept it, and instead of saying why me, like what am I going to do with this? Like you said, like a furnace. Like, am I going to use this to fuel me to do the right thing? Like you said, like I kept doing. What they say, insanity is
doing the same thing over and over again, expect a different outcome. It's amazing. We could record it.
Yeah, and it's probably all the recording heard was.
But yeah, that was what I was doing. And I did for years. And like you said, I would go up, I would reach a new high, and then
drop down.
Yeah, but so life could be something. Like you said, you got to take accountability and kind of accept it and know that it's not yours. You got to find what God wants you to do, and kind of pay attention to that. But Miss Lynn, I want to ask you, your children, you have a son and a daughter. Were they both raised in church?
Yes, I will say yes, because when I had my son, honestly, I think my son may have been 1 when I decided, it's time for me to give my life to the Lord, when he turned 1. So my son, both my kids grew up in church. Yeah, I grew up in church. And there were times when I didn't want to do church anymore, but it's kind of like your daughter, we're not going to church. And my son would get so upset because I didn't want to go. He would call his grandmother to come pick him up to go to church. I'm like, y'all go. I didn't want anything. I got to the point where I just didn't want to do church. I didn't. Yeah. And I didn't want to serve anymore, because I really did feel that I wanted to experience what the other people experienced. I wanted to know what it was like to come to church and come in at the hallelujah and leave at amen. I wanted to know what that was like. If service started at 9:30, I wanted to get here at 9:29, park the car, and as soon as we said amen, I wanted to get in the car and I wanted to leave. But when you have a servant's heart, that lasts but a short window of time. Because I remember a pastor at church that I used to go to, the best thing that he said, oftentimes we will complain about something. And the reason why you're complaining is because you have the skill to fix it.
Yeah.
But you won't fix it. So stop complaining if you're not going to fix it, if you're not going to step in to help. I felt that he had literally stepped on every toe I had because I was volunteering
Mhm.
in children's ministry of all places. I was in children's ministry and I thought it just wasn't running efficiently. How dare it not run efficiently like I thought that it should run. But I had to apologize to the leader. I did. I apologized to her because I felt that I was doing her a disservice by complaining when I could be helping. So I said to her, I like to be an administrator. Let me do this. Let me take this part off of your plate. Let me handle this for you. And she gave it to me to do. And then I realized, I think I had to make phone calls to remind people we were having a meeting. But then I realized from other volunteers that she was calling them as well. So I asked, I said, why are you calling them? She said, you have no idea how many people have told me that they were going to help me and they dropped the ball. I said, I am not that person.
The
If I
preconceived
said
notion that
exactly
you were going to do the exact
same thing.
Yeah.
So she said, okay, you said you're going to do it. I'm going to let you do it. That's what I did. In the midst of doing that, she walked away from being the leader of children's ministry. I mean, not like this is my last Sunday.
Just left.
She just left.
Wow.
When she left, the director that came in to be children's ministry looked at me and she said, okay, we're making you the lead. I'm sorry, ma'am.
That's not what I signed up for.
Exactly. That is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But I ended up being the director of children's ministry for 5 years.
Wow.
Who would have thought I would have needed that to run an in-home daycare?
I was about to say did that lead
Look at
into
God.
That was
That lead into that,
years
yeah.
ago. Both of my children were still in school
Yeah.
when I was a director of children's ministry. I went from being a director of children's ministry. I made the decision that I was burnt out. I was, okay, I need to get back into the service. I want to go into the service. We were having a conference and I had posted on Facebook, can't wait to be at the conference, looking forward to being in the conference. And the pastor's wife, no, I'm sorry, the first lady's daughter, oldest daughter, called me. She said, Miss Lynn, I saw that you posted this on Facebook. Is this true? Are you going to be here? And I said, yes. Are you going to be here for all of the services? Yes. I need you. Okay. What do you need me to do? I need you to come help in the green room. Now, our green room for this particular church was what we considered executive hospitality. The executive hospitality team served First Family, which was the pastor, the pastor's wife, their children, and all of the elite guests that came in. Everybody couldn't serve in executive hospitality. What am I doing now?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I doing now? I'm serving hospital.
Yeah.
I would have never thought then that this would be here.
Yeah.
I didn't see that here. I would have never seen me leading an E group. Seriously? If you had asked me that 10 years ago, no, my answer would have been no. It would have been, I don't know if that's not what you want me to do. That's not it. No, because I'll be honest.
You already started.
It's
now
like, I was like, because my mom even asked me this question. She asked me a question the other day and she said, do you get any complaints? I said, I'm pretty sure that I get complaints, but I asked her to explain. And she said, do you get any complaints about people who feel that your tone is offensive? You're not talking to them appropriately. I said, if I do, I haven't gotten them. And she said, well, do you believe it's because you've grown or do you believe it's because you love where you are? And I said, I can love where I am, but if I haven't grown, then loving them wouldn't matter. I remember the same church not being happy serving. You're not happy serving the people? My God.
Yeah.
Now you're just a volunteer, right?
I'm right.
Yeah.
Just a volunteer. You go over there.
Yeah.
And I never understood it. I had a friend at church. She was a minister, and I think I shared this story with you. She was a minister. She had a title. I don't have a title. We've talked about that title.
Yeah.
She was a minister. She said something to me, and I gave it back to her the same way she said it to me. Because I figured if you could bring it, you should be able to take it.
Right.
That's just how it was. But I was the one that got corrected. And I couldn't understand that. And I was like, why am I being corrected? And the lady looked at me. She said, because your calling is higher than hers. I said, but she's got the title of minister. She said, I said your calling is higher than hers. And I am still looking at her going, but her title.
Yeah.
And she said, but your whatever. That was over 10 years ago. We don't always understand the process that we're going through when we talk about that fortitude is all about God's end result. And sometimes it's that calling. I would have never, really? But again, we always think callings have to do with titles.
Yeah.
And it's not really a title behind any of it. It's not. We're all called the minister. And if we wanted to give a title, that's what we all are.
Yeah.
But I felt that if she was a minister, she could talk to me that way. I'm not a minister. Surely I could talk to her back the same way.
Right.
No. But I got corrected. Why am I being corrected? And I didn't understand that. And that stuck with me. And I do that same thing with my children. I did it before and I still do it. You can't do everything everybody else does because the call on your life is totally different than theirs.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation even with my daughter today. We were talking about leaders and leadership. And I explained to her when we don't really understand that when you're called to be greater or above or be a leader, the spotlight on you is totally different. You can do the exact same thing and do it wrong. You will be the one that's corrected. The others may not. And they may be corrected, but your correction is going to be different. They can get away with it. They may be able to skirt by. You're not, because the spotlight is going to always be on you. Because if you're a leader, I'm focused on you. I'm focused on you. And she was like, but I didn't ask for it. Never do.
Yeah.
I said, it's like somebody telling me, I want to be the armor bearer. No, that was an immediate no. No one asks to be an armor bearer. If you really want to be attacked first, that's what you really want to do. Being an armor bearer is more than carrying that Bible or purse. I want to be able to sit next to pastor. Nah, baby, that ain't what you want. That's not what you want. No.
Miss Lynn, you
Nobody
said
said.
something, and I think this is something that I have been, I'm gonna say, pondering or kind of struggling with. You were talking about a calling, right?
Mhm.
How does a person identify their calling? And then you said like it's not a title, right?
Mm.
So I think sometimes I look for God to say you're supposed to do this, but I think I'm still looking for a label, like something specific that I'm supposed to do, or a talent that I have.
Yeah.
But I'm
Mhm.
looking for something to attach it to, right? So when you say calling, how do you take away the label or the title from the calling, and how do you identify that? Or how would you say how would a person identify that their calling?
I think sometimes we know. I think sometimes we know what we're called to do. I think sometimes we look at it based on what we see as an example and think, that ain't me. I may feel that I can bring a word and I might feel like I can preach, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to preach like the person I idolize.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous too, idolizing.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't have to bring it that way. I can deliver the same word. You can say the exact same thing and give it a nice hoop and a good holler. And I can still tell you, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus. And I can still preach. I can still deliver the word. But I don't necessarily have to have the title of preacher to speak God's word. What is the title? It's just a title. But we just like we're here doing this podcast. We're not doing anything but sharing and talking. That's
Yeah.
all we're doing. That's all you do when you talk about Jesus, is sharing the gospel and who he is. I think sometimes we feel we have to have a title to feel that we're important or feel that we arrive. But we were all called to be preachers and teachers.
Yeah.
But it didn't necessarily tell us your title would be preacher. Your title would. I love getting women together to sit down and talk. We talk about Jesus, talk about whatever. I'm not going to necessarily tell you I'm a preacher, but if you ask me to give a word, I will.
Yeah.
But I don't need you to call me. I have had people call me many things. I have been given the title evangelist. I've been given the title of prophetess. I've been given the title of minister. I've been given lots of titles. None of them I want. I don't want any of them. My name is Lynn. I had to speak one time and we're going to have evangelist. No. And I don't want titles because that comes with something.
Yeah.
And that's something I may not want. No, I'm good. Just call me Lynn. Miss Lynn, Auntie Mom is my cousin from here would call me. I'm good. I don't necessarily need a title. And I think sometimes we get hung up in being called.
Yeah.
Like we feel like we have to be called, And I think that sometimes church doctrine that feels like, in order for you to do something, you have to be called. Or, sometimes it's like, I just feel like the Lord is telling me you're to be that. That ain't what God told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes we feel that's the way we're supposed to walk because the person who is over us has said that that's what we're supposed to do. But if that's not what something God has told you to do, you can get out here and make a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or be messy. But it's the truth. I don't want titles.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you need sometimes titles to identify who to go to. You know, like we have leaders here. That's the person that you need to go to run it through to make sure things are getting done. But I think sometimes we know what God wants us to do. I think sometimes the weight of what he wants us to do makes us fearful.
John Maxwell says he said a story about, he's a big writer, big guru, wrote a bunch of books and stuff. And he said one guy came up to him one day. He's like, I want to do what you do.
Mhm.
And his follow-up question was, oh, you want to do what I do, but do you want to do what I've done? So I think the concept of the title or the calling, it's revealed through the process of what God is going to put you through.
Right.
So even though like you could say, okay, well, you want to be a preacher. Well, of course, you're going to have to do things. Go to the school, go this or that. You can be a preacher. Like what Ms. Lynn is saying is that you can go about and do preacher things.
Yeah.
And still people be like, he's kind of like a preacher. So like you can get the title on purpose.
Right.
Or by just
doing what
of
looks
the things
like
that you're doing. So, I'm just pondering like your question and what Ms. Lynn is saying. I think that's part of it. For me, one of the callings I think, and God has called me to do is be a chain breaker, because there's a lot of things in my family that have been like that. And their excuse is, well, we're just Dominican, or we're just this, or we're just that. That's why. So by default, it's okay because that's XYZ. And, I feel like this is a strong calling in my life. Now, am I going to accomplish it? I don't know. But I just, right now, I think the biggest calling that we could just be followers of Christ.
Right.
And
That's what was just going to
whatever is a byproduct of that, you might get the title of this or that. But I think the focus and the foundation should be that, because we don't know. Like Ms. Lynn said, she just want to do administrative stuff with the kids at church, and then she ends up having a daycare.
Right.
She ends up being selected to a prestigious position to take care of the leaders and the guests of the leaders. And now she's taking care of the volunteers and basically making sure that they're being fed and taken care of in different aspects.
Right.
So like, she didn't say, hey, I want to be a hospitality coordinator, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. So I think, but you have a valid question, because, and I think, especially when you're new to like your Christian faith, like especially you, because I bragged on him last episode, because I bragged on him because like I knew Elias from when we had like a 20, 30-minute conversation before Pastor Angel's e-group that he used to have started. So we're just sitting there talking, and then we get to know, and then now he's one of the first people to get baptized on this land. Like he's going to have that, in his back pocket one day, he does at all the elevation trophies, I was there
first.
So like I was bragging on him because he's embraced it. Yeah. And I admire that. I admire that. I've never embraced being a Christian like I'm embracing it now.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I give props to you. I give props to a lot of the people that God, even something as silly as playing in a video game that I play in, because I role play in a video game, basically pretend to be somebody else and create content to put on the internet because I stream. I've met guys. I met one guy in particular from West Virginia. And the funny thing is, I only really know him he told me what his real name is, but I know him by his role-playing name. In my phone right now, his name is Crane, and that's just one of his characters. And it's just because that's what we call it. That's what we always call each other. But he's turned into somebody that like I'm bouncing off. Hey man, how can I pray for you? And he's telling me, this and that. And the funny thing is, he's also became a streamer, and I was like, he says I was a big part of like why he did it, because I just pushed him. I just told him, you're really good at this. Like you should try it. Yeah. And he tried it, and he got accepted, and he's actually able to monetize on a platform that I've been on longer than he has,
Mhm.
but he monetized a whole lot quicker because of just who he is. And then he's telling me all the things that he has going on, and I remember being there.
Mhm.
So like now I'm like, hey man, like you got to get a schedule, like you got to figure this stuff out, because when you're constantly focused on, you know, the thing that you think is gonna get you forward into the next step, and you forget yourself in the process,
It's
you know,
dangerous.
that's dangerous.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't. There isn't going to be a time where you're going to have to pay the price. That's not what I'm saying. That
Mhm.
I think that's fair to say for everything. You know, there always has to be a price that's paid, and but the thing is, there's always a price that's paid. Either
Yeah.
the price of regret or the price of discipline.
Mhm.
You know, discipline meaning that you doing the things you got to do in a certain way to get you there.
Mhm.
You know, however that long that takes, we don't know. That's up to God. But I've been on the paying the price of regret and regretting doing XYZ. And the funny thing is, my dad, I had just got out of the military due to, they told me I had a compressed vertebrae in my back.
Right.
They told me it was from birth. So I wasn't medically discharged. I was just generally discharged. I mean, I was just let go of the military, no harm, no foul. Well, the military was like something big in my life that like I really enjoyed and I loved. It changed my perspective, of, like how I look. The things I take for granted, all these things. Well, I was regretting getting out, and my dad, we were sitting out eating lunch. And he's like, "What's wrong?" And I was, "I know, you know, military. This, and I'm unfit." And he said, "Well, can you get back in?" I said, "Well, they gave me a reenlistment code. I can. Like, I have to
Mhm.
wait 6 months to try." He said, "Okay." He said, "Well, give it a shot." He said, "Because the worst thing you can do is wake up 10 years from now
And wish
and
you had.
regret you did." Now, I didn't get back in. I did start the process. Matter of fact, what sealed the deal for me is I gave my folder for the
Mhm.
military. I had all my military documents. I got, because I completed basic training. I enlisted in a time of war, the global war on terror and all that stuff. I had 3 medals. Like, so when I graduated on my dress uniform, I actually had 3 medals. They weren't like not Silver Star, but I had 3 medals. But all my documentation for that was in this folder. And the last recruiter I talked to, he's like, "Let me hold on to your folder, and I'm gonna go through it. And if I need something, I'll just grab it." Okay, cool. You know, I'm like, whatever. But then I didn't hear from him in a while, and then I was like, man, I haven't heard. And then I called another recruiter who I knew back when I was in the military, and I was, "Hey, have you seen Sergeant whatever his name was?" And he's like, "Oh no, he's already transferred over to another section. He's not even part of this detachment anymore." I said, "He has my folder." He's like, "Dude, your stuff's probably shredded or burned." So like, I'm like, well, I guess there's that. You know?
Oh.
Which I'm sure I could have gotten the documents if I put enough effort into getting it. But to get the original certificate from Fort Jackson,
Right.
to get all the things that like that, you know, I worked towards, you know, I think that was used to teach me that I shouldn't regret anything. And if you're gonna do it, even if you fail, it's better for you to do it than to not do it.
At least you could say, yeah, at least you
Yeah.
tried, right?
Yeah, at least I gave it. Let's say the old college try.
Not
right?
giving up. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's
But I listened to that, Luis, and honestly, you said something that was really key because with the gentleman that's streaming, you're teaching him what you did. And I think sometimes, a lot of times, that we go through things that we forget that it's not always for us. It's always for somebody else.
Yeah.
But if you hadn't gone through it,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have been able to tell him. You wouldn't be able to show him. And you could also get to that place. Okay, yeah, he's on it and he's monetizing from it. He may not be monetizing as the length of time that it took you, but you're not being begrudging
Oh,
the
no.
information. And I think sometimes people get like that. You know, why is that person? How are you doing that? And it took me this many years to do that. When it's your time, it's your time. There's nothing you can do about that. But you poured into him a part that you needed to learn, that you went through so that he wouldn't be making the same mistakes or
Yeah.
that would help him grow.
Yeah.
And I just believe that, God's going to bless you for that because you didn't hold back.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we as humans or people in general, we only don't want to give out that much.
Yeah.
As a society, that's what we do.
We only
Yeah.
get that much.
They call
Yeah.
it gatekeeping, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then one of the things, I think one of the worst things that you could do for, to somebody in this life is laugh at their goals.
Right.
If you have a goal, I don't care what the goal is. even if it's, you know, what
I'm going to get up and sharpen the pencils today.
You know, it could be the most simplistic thing. It could be the hardest thing is like, I want to be the first person on Jupiter. You know what I mean? You should not apply your reality to somebody else's dream, because you can't expect to see what they see when the vision was given to them. You know, so like, and I remember this, and the very first time I ever said these words was to my brother. He was young. My sister was like, "Oh, well, you know," I was talking to her. We were sitting down eating, and I was like, "Hey, what do you want? You want to work on this and that?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I would rather, I want to buy some property in Dominican Republic. I want to do this. I want to do that." And he started laughing, and I just looked at him. I was like, "What are you laughing about?" She's like, "Why would she want to do it?" I was like, "Dude, don't you never laugh at anybody's goals, because that shred of hope that they have on those goals might be the last thing they have on this earth.
Might be the last thing they have to hold on to.
Exactly. You know, and like for me, like being my history with my dad and him taking his life and me not knowing what he was going through, I just take that to a whole nother level. You know, and anytime I hear somebody say, "Hey, this is what I have going on, I'm thinking about," I take it serious.
As you should, though.
Even if I can tell that they just want the attention, because a lot of times, let's be honest, it's not really that. It's the attention that they're seeking, but you still have to give it some attention.
Right.
Because if you have to address it, and it's not it's not the boy, you know, crying wolf.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
What do you
And you know, you don't want to be on the receiving end on that, because that's where I was. I didn't know what was going on, and when I saw what I saw, like my defense mode kicked in, and I was like, my sister wanted to walk in. I was like, "No, you not to be in here." And then after that, you know, nobody else walked in. And I've shared this, I think, in my other podcast. My uncle, who was not in good standing with my dad, when he showed up, I basically had to almost tackle this man, because he wanted to go in there because he didn't believe it. And I was like, first of all, everybody in there right now, the cops in there, you know, this and that. Like, you can't be in there. And two, like, you don't need to see it. You don't need to be in there.
Wow.
Because like, and I took that on, because as much as that affected me in the brief seconds that I saw it, I was like, this cannot happen to anybody else. And yeah, it's
that's a heavy weight to carry.
It's a heavy one. It's a heavy weight to carry, and it's nothing but God, because I've been in so many rooms when I think I'm like, man, you know, I'm not doing the best, and then there's somebody, and they'll be like, I've had multiple people tell me, it's like, you're gonna do great things in your life. Your smile, like you just how you carry yourself, and then those are the moments where like the devil tries to. He's in your ear saying, that's not true. You know, and it could be in the church. It doesn't even have to be like out there. It could be in here.
Yeah.
And that's when you have to have moments that you have to be like, you know what? I don't care what you're saying, because I know who stands with me. And that's where the fortitude comes. And that's with doing, it's the daily battle, it's daily carrying your cross. It's, you know, even if it's, Meredith says this, you know, all the time. If you learn one Bible verse a week for a whole year and memorize it, you'll know 52 Bible verses in a year.
Right.
That seems like, to a book of 66 and how many pages and how many lines and how many verses, you're like, that's like chump change. But the fact that those words are ingrained in your mind, and it's actually renewing your mind, as what the Bible instructs us to do, you know, those are those small hinges that are going to swing big doors.
I wanted to thank both of y'all, because I started off with a question and you guys both answered it. So what was I said about purpose?
Yeah.
And if maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but I just wanted to make sure that I got it, make sure I wrap my head around it. But what I heard you guys saying was, it's not necessarily a title.
Yeah.
And you may be fulfilling a purpose, but because it doesn't have a title, that may be the part that I'm missing, right? So I may be fulfilling my purpose by, you know, just doing what I'm doing every day, but because it's not called
something
ABC,
else,
I'm not lashing onto it and saying that that's what it is. So thank you both for.
I look at
giving the
Mr.
clarity on that.
Steve when I get here
Yeah.
in parking lot. Every Sunday that I come, you know, I'm not supposed to be here till 7.
Yeah. A little early.
I'm always a little early, sorry. But I watch him faithfully here before me.
Yeah.
Getting here right a little bit before praise and worship gets here. But he is setting out cones in the rain.
Yeah.
Cold. And he still has the same smile on his face. If it was a summer day,
Yeah.
he hasn't changed.
I love it.
There's nothing fantastic about that, but he does it faithfully.
Yeah.
And he does it because that's the thing he does.
Yeah.
That's not a title. What title you give that? I think they had it on Facebook. They called the parking lot attendants the most gangster group in a church ministry, and they called it the Asphalt Apostles.
I love it.
I thought that was so funny, but there's nothing grand about that. But everybody looks for something to be grand.
Yeah.
We want the parade because we want the accolades. That's human. I need an attaboy. I need to know that, you saw me. It's great. But there's nothing grand about that.
Yeah.
But he's not doing it to have a parade. He's doing it because it needs to be done. This is the part that I can do, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
It takes pride in it.
It takes pride in it. And I think that's the purpose.
Yeah.
What are you taking pride in? What is bringing you fulfillment that glorifies God?
Yeah. I was going to say that it goes back to what Luis was saying, right? Because you said our job is to get up, and even if it's just one
Bible verse.
Yeah. If it's just 1% more than what you did today, it's just to be one step closer to being a child of God and mirroring his image, right?
Right.
So as long as we're doing that, we're fulfilling purpose. So it may not have, like you said, a flashy title, or it may not have a title to it at all. But as long as we're doing it with a good, from the right posture, right heart posture.
Yeah. I mean, think about if David didn't have the faith that God was going to deliver him from the lion and the bear, he wouldn't have had the faith that he was going to deliver him from Goliath.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I think that's the core of like having that faith. You right now are in youth ministry, right? That's something that you are involved in, that you're pouring into these kids. If 2 years down the road, a kid that used to be in youth ministry here leaves and comes back, and he sees you and he's like, "Oh, I started my own youth program."
You did your call.
And it's because what you were pouring into him. But the thing is, we just don't know. And that's the faith. That's the faith component that comes into it. You have to have the faith to do the work without the results.
Right.
Like a farmer plants crops. When it's time to plant, there's a time to plant. There's a time to harvest. Sowing and reaping. That's what that concept. That's why God uses farming so much, or like taking care of sheep. Like shepherds. Like sheep. I mean, what do they do? Eat grass. I mean, eat grass and provide wool. But like the idea that you are the protector of something so precious, because that's how you might feed your family, or like XYZ. All these analogies that God has put in the Bible or thought processes, they work. If a farmer doesn't have, faith that his crops are going to yield,
right?
What is he going to do when it's time to pay the bills?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
that's good.
So,
but thank you both though. Like I said, it definitely gave me some clarity to
man. That's just
it at all.
They didn't, just listen to Miss Lynn's story, and even your story, man. But like, you guys are inspiration, because you guys bring a different flavor to what makes Elevation great. Not perfect, makes it great.
Yeah, far from it. Far from it.
We can always find something, but if we focus on those some things and not focus on what's in front of us, then what's the point? But,
very true.
Well, Miss Lynn, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having me.
hanging out.
Appreciate it.
Elias, as always, brother, appreciate you, hanging out with me. And
of course,
I guess I'll have to give you one extra sandwich.
It's like two sandwiches.
On the side.
But Miss Lynn, it was a blessing to get to know you a little bit better.
I'll stop picking on you on Sundays.
I do like to leave. I do like to leave. If you guys know of any ladies that need an e-group, Miss Lynn, do you meet virtually?
Yes.
Okay. At the end of the video, there is going to be a QR code. In the QR code, there are links to Elevation e-groups. The name of your e-group is?
Did you hear that?
Did you hear that? So if you know of any ladies that would benefit from joining an e-group virtually, definitely check out Miss Lynn. She meets
every other Tuesday at 6:30 p.m.
At 6:30. And then you also do a monthly program on YouTube.
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit about that? That way,
Yes. Okay. So my monthly program is actually called Out the Box. And I titled it Out of the Box because I wanted it to be a program where we come out the box, because I think sometimes we limit ourselves by society and just us in general.
Yeah.
You know, we need to come out the box and stop living life so boxed in. It's okay to do it in color outside the lines.
Yeah.
It's okay. So that's the name of my title. It's called Out of the Box. It actually airs on Facebook from ALH Broadcasting off of Facebook, and then it tunes into YouTube off of their page.
Okay.
And I am every third Monday at every third Monday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
And will we be able to find the dedication for your children on there? Is that where
is it
where that
recorded?
is?
You have
Yes,
recorded?
it was because I just did it last week. Yes, so it is
Okay.
recorded. Actually, I think it is already re-aired, but it is out there.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds like we're going to end out with the music. I told you I was going to bring it back.
That's all right.
We're going to bring it back. Well, guys, another episode of the Armory podcast. Appreciate everybody hanging out, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yes.
Well, that's all we have, guys. Before you go, remember this. This is the daily battle. And every single day, you have to suit up. Not in your own strength, but knowing that God is on your side. You're not alone in this. We're in it with you. We love you. If you're looking for tools, resources, or a way to stay sharp, scan the QR code on the screen. Stay disciplined, stay focused, stay faithful. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take a stand against the devil's scheme. Ephesians 6. God bless.